Honorable Speaker. I was waiting for the point at which the majority leader utters the words that he has finished with, thanking the nominating party for bringing such a brilliant individual to represent persons with disabilities. Of course, the record of this House will show that the ODM party continues to be extremely proud of the nomination of Senator Crystal Asige. She has demonstrated an understanding of the issues of the people that she represents that has widened our perspective and understanding of the issues facing the persons living with disability in this country. Speaker, allow me to start with an often repeated adage in this House that the National Assembly is a place where Senate bills go to die. But for the very first time, and maybe Crystal will be sharing the magic because we have many more bills if you look at our order paper that will require the input of the National Assembly. For the very first time, we can see, first of all, a very positive reception of ideas that have originated from this House, and secondly, an action by the National Assembly to actually enrich the proposals that we've made in this Senate. So, Honourable Speaker, I also want to say that I support the report. I support the amendments by the National Assembly. There's three specific clauses that have been introduced by the National Assembly that I wanted to speak to. First of all, Honourable Speaker, there is an amendment that appears as clause 26, which deletes subclause 1 and substitutes the subclause with the right to freedom of expression and opinion, including the freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas, and the right to access information on an equal basis with others in a timely manner and without additional cost. I think this is something Crystal wrote herself, because from the time that we got into this House, I know she has caused a lot of problems for the Secretariat here, even accessing a simple thing like an order paper. She kept at the beginning of this term reminding this House that she did not have the same abilities to see the things that were being posted on the group in the manner in which they were posted. So this is something I am sure Crystal wove into the bill herself to access information just the same manner that Sifuna and other able-bodied senators in this House do, and on a timely manner, because oftentimes we would start debate and then somebody remembers that, oh, we needed to put it in a version that Crystal can access. And I am sure there was additional cost of trying to get this information. Honourable Speaker, allow me to also mention that in December, when I was meeting the community health promoters in Nairobi, I met another very interesting VIP by the name of Angela, and I had actually promised her a meeting with Crystal. And some of the things that she was speaking about, Honourable Speaker, they also widened my perspective about the challenges that these persons living with disability go through, and especially visually impaired persons. Would you know, Honourable Speaker, that when a visually impaired person goes to see a doctor, they need somebody else to accompany them to read what the doctor has said is a problem with them. Now, this presents a very serious constitutional problem, Honourable Speaker, that medical information on what you are suffering from is not necessarily things that you want to share with everybody. So it is it is a private affair. So, Honourable Speaker, you can imagine if you told members of this House to even go with their spouses to read some of the, what are they called, the results of their tests, they would not allow it. So you imagine having to go with a third-party stranger just because they are your helper, to then read the results for you and then to tell you what those results are. Of course, that person is also consuming that information in proper violation of the rights to medical privacy. And then, Honourable Speaker, even when you're given prescription drugs, because the standard practice in our hospitals is that they have no special, you see the small envelopes in which they put the drugs. There has to be a way in which a visually impaired person living on their own can be able to tell that this is medicine I've been given for my headache, this is the medicine and even the instructions that are written on the envelopes there, saying this one should be taken 1 times 1, 1 times 3. If you do not have somebody else to help you, Honourable Speaker, then it is impossible for visually impaired persons to even take those prescriptions properly. So she challenged me as a legislator to make sure that this right of access to information that now has been prescribed here, we will expect that even our hospitals, they will comply that we will find a way of making sure that if you give somebody their medical results or their prescription, they must be in a language that they can access, in a format that can be accessed, whether it means that we will have to incorporate Braille in medical reports and even in those prescriptions. So I am still hoping that Senator Christo will not give up. She will give me opportunity for us to have that conversation with Angela, because as the majority leader has said, the role of legislation is solving real problems for real people and not just throwing around legislation for the sake of legislation. Then, Honorable Speaker, there is a new clause, 66A, which talks about a person who procures, causes or encourages or solicits a child or an adult with disabilities to engage in begging. Honorable Speaker, this is a very serious phenomenon, especially here in Nairobi. Because of the attendant economic challenges that come with being a PWD, and because society has decreed or encouraged many of us, when we see a person living with disability, you just automatically imagine that these people need your support and that is your financial support. Yet many of these PWDs have the ability to actually fend for themselves. In Nairobi here, we tried to make sure that we give opportunity for PWDs to do business even within the CBD, although recently there was a very serious case when the county government of Nairobi kicked them out of their places of business in the CBD, a matter that brought a lot of consternation to all of us as the leadership of the county. And, Honorable Speaker, those of us who know Nairobi, the streets of Nairobi, there is a phenomenon where you will find that there is a specific person with disability walking with an able-bodied person asking for alms, and they have been there for years. You actually can tell every person's square as if it were akin to how the drug lords and drug dealers acquire territory that no other person can come and actually beg there or request for alms there. And it tells you that it is an organized syndicate, that they find these persons with disability in the villages or in our estates here in Nairobi, and they ensure that they work certain corners, as they say, begging for these alms. And we don't say that it is all of them. We are saying that it is actually a phenomenon, and it is our responsibility for, to make sure that we take care of these persons so that they are not taken advantage of. So you will find, Honorable Speaker, that in most cases, even the money that is collected at the end of the day, that PWD will get a very small percentage of that money. And you can imagine it's a cartel. You have a cartel boss who is running the whole of Harambee Avenue. He has put 5 persons with disability on every corner of Harambee Avenue. He's the one who brings them in the morning, stations them there, and picks them in the afternoon and collects every coin that they have made on a single day. And also, it is an abuse of our empathy as a people. It is an abuse of our good nature. It is an abuse of our inclination to help those who may say they require help. And this is what has made, there's even been a lot of hostility directed at genuine persons with disability, because somebody somewhere says that they might be part of this cartel that is soliciting for alms, and yet they are just taking advantage of these persons with disability. So the bill here, the National Assembly has proposed, and it's a proposal that I support, that if you are found taking advantage of persons with disability, forcing them to solicit for alms or begging in the streets, you will be liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 2 million shillings and imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years, or to both. What I want the National Police Service to do with this provision immediately we pass, I think there are some straightforward and obvious cases in the streets of Nairobi. If you find somebody has been working the same corner for the past 12, 20 years, it should be a red flag that that person needs to be investigated. And we want to encourage even the persons with disability, although they might be doing this against their own will, but they need to understand that they have to cooperate with the law enforcement so that they are not victimized when they themselves are actually victims. They are no different from the Kenyans we were discussing, who were lured into faraway countries only to be taken advantage of by cartels in these online scams. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, there is the new clause 73A that provides that every government agency putting up residential and commercial buildings shall reserve at least 5% of the said residential and commercial buildings for acquisition by PWDs, and the terms and conditions of such acquisition to persons with disabilities shall include interest-free and longer periods of repayment. Now, this is a live matter, especially here in Nairobi. And I wish there was a way to make it clear that when you speak of government agency, you are speaking of both government at the national and the county level. Because as you know, Mr. Speaker, Nairobi County government is undertaking the largest construction project for housing in this country. We have 13 old council estates that are being redone in what the county government is calling urban regeneration program. We broke ground just a few weeks ago at the site in Woodley, and there are other 12 or so estates that are waiting that development. If you look at the agreements that were signed between the Nairobi County government and the developers, it is stated there that the Nairobi County government will be receiving the proportion of housing units equal to the amount or the value of the land that was donated for that particular project. So for Woodley, for instance, we were told that the value of land was put at around 10 billion Kenya shillings, and that entitles the county government of Nairobi to a 30% share of the units that will be built in that particular project. How I wish this particular provision had come earlier, because Honorable Asige, unfortunately, in that agreement between the residents and the developer and the county government of Nairobi, nobody thought about access to housing by PWDs. And you need to think about it at the inception so that it is clear to the residents that, for instance, the housing units on the ground floor are going to be exclusively for persons with disabilities. Because there is no point, Honorable Speaker, having somebody on the 20th floor and creating even more problems when it comes to access. So I wish that this had been done earlier, but as I've told you, Honorable Speaker, you need to hang out with Senator Crystal before you see some of his angles to these very real issues. But I'm hoping that we can make sure that there is a way, even those contracts that have already been signed, we ensure that Nairobi County government and of course the national government, which is doing houses in Mukuru, we are doing, they're also doing houses in Langata. We hope that this 5%, Honorable Speaker, will be set aside for residents to occupy, residents with disability to occupy. Then the second limb of that particular provision also provides for interest-free and longer periods of repayment. Now, this is extremely critical because, as we have been educated more than once here by Senator Asige, there are economic downsides that come with PWDs because of the way the Kenyan economy is set up. They start off with a clear disadvantage, and they might not have the same access to resources or to even credit that we able-bodied persons have, or indeed to even jobs and economic engagements that can be meaningful for them. So for us to provide interest-free payments and longer periods, it allows for these houses to be accessible to all these people. I remember having a conversation with one member of parliament where the houses are being done, and they are saying that the houses are affordable, but the deposit alone, Honorable Speaker, is 150,000 Kenya shillings. And many of these applicants, because we are doing these houses in essentially areas that were former slums. You know, if you go to Soweto B in Langata, Honorable Speaker, the people who are targeted to move into those places cannot afford 150,000 shillings as a deposit. In fact, that provision of a deposit should be removed entirely. We were able to push the Nairobi County government in Woodley, at least, for them to concede that if people who have been occupying those houses from way back when the estate was built, they don't need to put down any deposits. In fact, they don't need to build any houses. The governor of Nairobi, to pay any monies. The governor of Nairobi is on record saying all former residents of Woodley who gave up their houses for the redevelopment will get their houses for free, and that the rent that has been paid by their fathers and their fathers before them up to date is what constitutes the purchase price, and it is a return for the goodwill in cooperating to ensure that the project is done. So even for the national government, this question of asking residents of Kibera, asking residents of Mukuru, for them to pay a deposit of 150,000 to access a unit and then you start paying slowly, Honorable Speaker, it is not going to work. And especially so for persons living with disabilities, and we hope that we can convince even the national government to adopt the same approach that the county government of Nairobi has taken. So, Honorable Speaker, all in all, those are my comments on the amendments by the National Assembly, and I wish to see more cooperation such as this between our two houses, because all this legislation that we propose here, I believe it is good for the people, it is good for the people of Kenya, and we need to do it together for them. So with those very many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Senator Professor Margaret Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity first to congratulate